only the lower class of the society? Is it only their duty? Is it only their duty to preserve the indigeneity? Is it not the duty of the upper class elite section, of the privileged section of the society, to do something so as to preserve the indigeneity in language, so as to preserve the language? I'm not against language. I'm not an open secret. It is quite open that in the lower cities, towns, and the villages, education is getting imparted in Hindi. This is a fact. And at the same time, we all know that it is open that English is required to gain the mobility, to gain the success, progress in the society, economically, socially. It would increase your status and your class if you speak in English. You will be highly likely to get a job, be it in the corporate world or in the private world or in the public world. Sorry, but 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 what's happening is that it is helping in perpetuating the inequalities, reproducing the inequalities. Because the person who is coming from the underprivileged background will not be able to access the education in English. Thus, it hampers his career progression. Now, what could be the typical solution? The time when this new establishment government is there in the power, which supposedly, avowedly, apparently talks of the conservation and preservation of our culture and its heritage, why hasn't taken any big steps? Why aren't there reforms? Because even now you need good hold on English so as to pass any exam with the government exam, and you need a good hold on English, good fluency and proficiency in English so as to compete in the job market, so as to prove your worth, to become capable. And this gap is only increasing. The dichotomy is only getting worse. The divide is only becoming more and more severe. This is a question of policy reform. This is a question of policy reform, which I hope the people who are sitting at the helm of the administration. Yeah, so namaste and welcome everybody. Today we are going to talk on a very important, very serious issue, which is decoloniality in education and language from the class perspective, from the Marxist perspective, you can say, or from the conflict perspective, you can say. So I have actually put down the broad points which we will be talking upon. Otherwise, what happens with me particularly is when I pick up the mic, then I keep on speaking and speaking and speaking. I do not stop. So I have put down the broad 10 points which we will be picking up here so as to give it a structure to the talk, right? So basically, for the people who do not know about the decoloniality, let me tell you briefly what it is all about. As the name says, decoloniality, right? The name originates from the word colonial. So something which is colonial is something which belongs to the Britishers, to the English people who ruled us, who actually conquered our territory, established their rule and governed us, the Indians, the Bharatiya people, the indigenous native people of Bharat for a very long time. Okay, so the process, like how they actually conquered us, is called colonization. They made their colonies over here. This is basically colonization. And actually, they not only conquered the territory, but they also conquered our minds, which is very much visible even now in our choices, in our practices, in our beliefs, in our ways of doing the things, in our administration, governance, be it the judiciary, or be it the policy making, formulation, etc., etc. The colonial mindset is very, very present here, and this is what is coloniality. So colonization is basically conquering the territory, setting foot on the territory, on a foreign territory. That is colonization, and coloniality is the legacy which the colonial powers, the imperial powers, they leave even after leaving the territory. So interestingly, what happened? Ki Britishers left our territory in 1947, but they haven't left their value system, which is still present there. They haven't left the administrative system which they built. It is very much there. We are still living under the colonial hangover, so to say. We eat the clothes that we wear, be it the food that we eat, be it the governance structure, be it the education, which is Macaulay in many ways, despite the fact that India has its own peculiar problems, is having its own peculiar social structures. Uh, institutions and its own peculiar OET, that is ontology, epistemology, and theology. But despite this fact, what we are doing is we are actually uh, not letting go of the colonial mindset, and that is basically what is coloniality. Now, so as to revive the Indic value system, Indic ways which are suitable, which suit the Indic landscape, that is Bharatiya landscape. Some scholars have come there with a concept called decoloniality. Decoloniality, let us indigenize the governance, the value system, the thought process, the mindset. Let us indigenize it. Let us give it Indian touch. And this is basically what decoloniality is all about. And not only in India but also in other countries like wherever the Britishers ruled, because they left no territory on the globe where whatever they could conquer, they conquered. So this concept originally it originated in the American island, in the um, yeah, in the Americas. It originated there in 1960s, 70s, 80s. People there started looking at the things from the indigenous perspective, native perspective, right? And our authors, like Indic authors, took the cue from them and started applying the decoloniality, started looking at the things from the decolonial lens here in India. As of now, JSI Deepak stands as the most important person who has written extensively on decoloniality. His very first book, that is India, that is Bharat, he talks about decoloniality over there and discovers so many issues there. Explore so many issues there, right? Well, that is not the part of our today's discussion, not to go deep into today's topic. I hope you have got the broad understanding of what is colonization, what is coloniality, what is decoloniality, and what is the exact opposite of it. Like, what is the opposite of coloniality? Is the Swadeshiness. Is the indigness. Is the indigeneity. Is the nativeness in us, right? So, for a very crude example, would be the clothes that we wear. So, for example, even in India, that is having hot climate, even in India, we can see people in the summers wearing the suit, and people letting go of the traditional conventional attire, that is kurta pajama, that is dhoti. That is very much logical and rational given the climatic conditions here in Bharat, but we feel ashamed of it. And a western attire, that is coat suit, it gives us a sense of dignity. It enhances our status, it gives us confidence, and it has become a part of our daily routine. When we go in the governance, then you can see the functioning of the judiciary is still like even in the 21st century, even in the present times, when there is a lot of push on the Indic revivalism, judiciary doesn't hear cases. There can be no hearings in the Hindi language. It is only in the English. Even the judgments are, remember, as far as I remember, even the judgments are published only in the English. This shows about the colonial mindset, right? When it comes to the food, then the food we eat, like we do not eat sattvic food, seasonal fruits, organic food, fresh food, that is Indic in nature, our traditional conventional food. And we take the pride in eating rotten bread, or this what do we call it, sandwich, pizza, burger, and these all the things that are actually good if the foreigners eat them, because they do not have so much of luxury with regards to the diverse flora and fauna. As it is in the case of Bharat, we are blessed with a lot of cereals, grains, and variety of fruits and vegetables, seasonal fruits and vegetables at a very cheap rate that is nutritious and healthy for our body. But still, we take pride. We are going toward the Western ways of eating. So that was one thing about the colonial nature or the coloniality. It can be seen in the administration. People have a very the administrators, the officials there. They do not have compassion and sympathy towards the people. They have rigid mindset. The red tapeism, which is prevailing there in the administration, it tells us about the coloniality, right? So overall, this agenda looks very good, very good, very impressive. Talking about me personally, I came to know about the thing decoloniality from J. Sai Deepak. I heard the term first time from his mouth, and much before him, I had listened extensively Rajiv Dixit, who talked about Swadeshiness and revivalism of the native ways, indigenous ways, be it in the food, in the clothes, and in the beliefs, values, practices, and other things. He was a prolific speaker, and he actually passed away, had an untimely demise, but still he is in the heart of so many people. Was a great soul indeed. So already I had that thought in my mind, but I didn't know that it is technically called as decoloniality until unless I listened to JSD extensively. Till 2 years ago, there was no video of him available on the YouTube or internet that I hadn't watched. And I'm not talking about those shorts or the 5 minute long video that are going viral these days. No, uh, at that time they were not there much in vogue. It was only 1 hour or 2 hour long video sessions that the talks that he delivered on various fora, and they garnered views barely in triple digits, mostly in double digits when I used to listen him, and I still listen him and I admire him. I'm his follower. Like there are no two ways about it. And I have read his book, and so much I was fascinated by his this agenda of him, that I ordered the book. Otherwise, I'm a bania. Like I think, twice before buying something which is in 500 or 600. I usually go for the books available in the book fairs where we can buy them at very cheap rates. But it was JSI Deepak, so I gave no second thought to it, and I pre-ordered his book that got delivered to me the very same day it was launched, on 16th of August in 2021, if I remember it correctly. Yes, and I read it within a couple of days. That was amazing, and some people might feel, like how can you read it in just a couple of days? Even he, for that matter, felt slightly shocked. कि how can you, when I told this thing to him on Instagram, then I told him, like, I've been listening to you for a very long time, so yeah, it is possible for me. So now I just want to establish that, yeah, I'm somebody who is very much fascinated by him, by his ideology, by his works, by his agenda, and I see a great value in it. I take pride in my culture. I'm a nationalist, and there is a lot of convergence between me and between his views. Exceptions being a couple of things. For example, caste. So I'm a sociology student. I'm a JRF researcher in sociology, and I have listened Ambedkar extensively. I have read almost all of his works, and I have personally observed the society, the societal institutions, the institution of caste and its consequences on the people. How does it intersect with the gender, with the inequalities, with the class, and other related things? I have very keenly observed it with sociological lenses. So we can differ on caste at some points, but largely on the nationalistic issues, on the issues concerning our culture, civilization, there's a lot of convergence, right? So yeah, this is not a video like which is exposing him, or which is like going against him. I'm not going against him. I'm just being open-minded. I'm just being critical. He himself admires people doing taking part in samvad, in debates, discussions, discourses. That's been the tradition of India from ancient times. So yeah, on this note, I would just like to say that do not get offended. Take it with a positive mindset. Maybe I'm playing devil's advocate at some places, that surely I would be. Okay, so do not judge, please do not judge. Okay. And yeah, being a sociology researcher, I cannot uh, do away. I cannot do away with the sociological lenses through which I would be contemplating on this issue, on the issue of decoloniality in education and language from the class perspective or from the Marxist perspective, you can say. Okay, this was a little bit about me, about JSD, about the equation between us, so that you people do not judge. Coming to the third point, decoloniality in education is what medium of instruction is really decoloniality education or perpetuating indigenous. Yeah. So basically, what happens is that the people who are advocating for decoloniality, they are saying that our system is dominated by the colonial mindset with the colonial OET, which is English in nature, which is English in nature. So as to further simplify it, they say that the education that is imparted to the students is English in nature, and what's the consequences of this? That we are losing our indigness, we are losing our indic ways of imparting the knowledge, indic ways of instructing the pupils or the students. What are the indic ways? These are the indic languages. This could be Hindi, which is widely spoken in the northern belt, and this could be the regional language as well. So what's happening is that because English ruled us for 250 years, they left this legacy that English would be ubiquitous in the education realm, in the education realm. And the proponents of decoloniality, they say that it is not good, because what's happening is that we would lose on the Hindi, that is our mother tongue, that is our cultural civilizational language that we take pride on. This is their position, right? And this is good also. This is good also. So proponents of decoloniality, they say that we should revive local languages. Let's take Hindi for the convenience. We should revive Hindi. We should keep Hindi with us. We should not let go of Hindi. It should survive. It should not to become something of the past, just like Sanskrit. And it is equally applicable to all other regional languages, be it Marathi, Telugu, Tamil, and all. These people say that, okay, and this is pretty nice, pretty amazing on the face. But what's my observation? What's troubling me? What pricked me? What actually motivated me to come here and discuss this issue is, over the last 2 to 3 days, I was traveling, and I was traveling to in Agra and in Mathura and Vrindavan. When I came back to my home, I came through the train, and then I boarded the bus to reach my hometown. And within that distance of say 60 to 80 kilometers, I saw some 50 to 60 students, school students, getting on the bus, boarding the bus, and getting down the bus at various locations. Okay, so what typically happens is that India lives in villages. There is a 70 percentage of the population which is living in the villages, which is not living in the urban areas. And this section of the society does not have access to quality education. This is pretty clear, because schools in the villages, in the rural areas, in the towns, they are not good. They are not good. So what happens is that they go to the government schools, which generally provide or impart the education in Hindi. In Hindi, these lower class people, they are lower class people generally. Assume that, like in rural areas, let us assume that they are lower class people, or they are underprivileged people. Let's call it underprivileged. That's better, because there are multiple disprivileges that are at work here. There are multiple factors in which they feel disprivileged. For example, region, place. It is rural area, not an urban area. So of course there would be the lack of dearth of amenities, facilities, and the provisions. Right. This is one thing. Second thing is, when it comes to the education, then there are no good teachers there in the rural schools. Third thing, and I think this is the most important thing, which is the infrastructure. The building and all, they are not good, they are dilapidated, and they are not enough to provide you the right ecosystem, the environment where quality education can be imparted. Coming to the fourth point, which is linked to this point only, digitalization and its fruits. They have not yet made their way in the rural areas. So, for example, you cannot see the projectors or the smart classes working there in the rural areas. So when these all things get combined, then what happens is the resultant multiple disprivileges which an ordinary person who's living in the rural area suffers from. Further adding to the problem, like adding fuel to the fire, is the language thing. Is the language thing. So already there are so many inequalities at work there for the rural people, for the people who are disprivileged or underprivileged, or most of them are coming from the lower classes, lower castes, we can say. And adding fuel to the fire is the language thing, because government has decided that government would impart the education in the local language, which is Hindi, at least in the northern parts. I do not know much about the southern parts. At least in the northern India, it is Hindi, in which the English, the language, the medium of instruction is Hindi, in which the education, the knowledge would be imparted. This is one thing. And it why it is still very much prevalent there, why it is not changing, because the agenda of the state is to maintain the indigenous, native, or swadeshi ways of uh, imparting the knowledge, or our swadeshi cultural heritage. Like language is a cultural heritage, isn't it? So if they say that if we change the medium of instruction to English, then this would render the Hindi language virtually extinct. It would become extinct, because in the urban in the urban areas, everybody is getting the knowledge in English only. In the urban areas, suppose that even a lower class person would be getting the education, not the lower class, but yeah, at least like lower middle class and the middle class would be getting the education in English only. In the rural areas, what's happening is that even if you are upper class, if you are a person like whose family has a lot of land, has a lot of status, suppose that even if you come from the Brahmin family, even if you come from somewhere from the family having a lot of wealth, but still the education would be in Hindi. In most of the cases in the rural areas, people are from the lower classes. Now, interestingly, the thing is that the observation is that it is up to this section of the this underprivileged section of the society. It is up to them only to sacrifice things for the sake of maintaining the indigeneity, nativeness, and the Swadeshiness in Bharat. Have they taken the theka, or so to say, the responsibility, all the responsibilities to maintain this indigenous, and at what cost? At the cost of their personal career progression, personal development, personal growth, personal future prospects. Now you can say why? Because language to a large extent decides your future prospects. Even if it does not directly decide, then it plays a very crucial role. It plays an instrumental role in deciding what your class would be, what your status would be, what your uh, life chances would be, how will your family, your children be in the future. It does. So as to become successful, you need to have good command on the language, on English. That is pretty true. Now what the government is doing is that in the private institutes, the education is imparted in English, but that is accessible only for some elite section of the society. The private school education, that commercialized education, is accessible, affordable, and available only to the certain privileged elite section, the cream of the society. On the other hand, what's happening is that for the subaltern people, for the peasants, for the workers, for this section of the society, language that is used to impart the education and knowledge is Hindi, is generally Hindi or any other regional language. Now try to understand this thing. The language that is required so as to make progress in your career is English. Ask any engineering student who come from a backward region how many problems did he face in his interview or in his group discussion in getting the placement, in getting a job. Ask any other person like a lower class person who's getting job in some corporate, in some companies, through the interviews and all. Ask any person who is preparing for the government exams. For example, the middle class people, lower middle class people who appear for the exams like SSC and all, they attend their education in the schools which used to impart which impart the education in Hindi. Did it has any value there? Did it help them there when they grew up and sought the jobs and appeared for the exams so as to get a job, so as to live a decent dignified life? Did the Hindi help there? No. What helped there? What came there? What's required there is your proficiency, fluency, and your efficiency in English language. In most of the exams, say SSC, say banking, these are the exams, and associated them are the exams like IB and all, which most of the middle class people aspire for. You know, there is a separate dedicated section for English. Separate dedicated section for English. Now, why do you think a person coming from a lower class, backward region from the lower class would be at the same level to that of a person who's coming from the privileged background or who attained his education in English? Would they be at same level? No, they will not be at same level. It would be a cakewalk for this person who's coming from the privileged background or say who attend the education in English. Like if not he is from DPS, Delhi Public School necessarily, but he got the education in English, he would be at an advantage. For example, I have a couple of friends of mine called, the names are Siddharth, Pash, and all. So they of course attend their education in English. They appeared in SSC. They are primarily focusing on the UPSC Civil Services examination, and they are brilliant minds. And they once appeared in the SSC examination, and they didn't prepare much for it. Barely did they give it 5 days or 10 days. That's it. That's it. Nothing. And competing with this top class, rich class, elite class, were the people coming from the lower class of the society who went to the government schools, which are invariably, as far as I can see, are imparting the education in Hindi only. High school, girls school, boys schools, excellence school, ye vidyalay, wo vidyalay, you must have heard their names. These are the schools where masses go, and they impart the education in Hindi. And if they are imparting the education in Hindi, this is not going to give this section of the people the mobility. It is causing hindrances, a lot of barriers, impediments in what? In them realizing their life goals, in getting a good job in the future, in making progress in the future. On the other hand, this privileged section of the society, because they went to a private school, they could afford it, they came from middle class or higher class. It is a cakewalk for them. It is a cakewalk for them. They didn't study much. They didn't give no damn care. How would I clear the exam? They just woke up one day. They thought like, oh, let us appear in the SSC examination, and they went there and they cleared it. And they cleared it because a section, a paper, which is an integral part of the examination, is totally based on language, and that language is English. That language is not Sanskrit, is not Hindi, is not your regional language. That is English. And for a reason, for what reason? That your entire system, the bureaucratic system, administrative system, the governance system, is working, is in English. That whole system is in English. That is why you need the people, the officials, the workforce, manpower that is well equipped in English. That is well equipped in English. So the exam, conducting bodies, they are also to some extent justified in keeping the English as an integral part of their syllabus, because the entire work is getting done in English. But the interesting thing is, it becomes very easy for that section of the society who's privileged to crack these examination and get the job. It becomes very difficult, very strenuous, very tedious for this section of the society to actually compete with this section of society, to sustain that competition, to make efforts so as to become capable to clear that examination. This is the whole issue. I hope I could make my point clear here. So I asked Siddharth, I asked Pashu, I asked Akhilesh. Just a second. हेलो.
जाऊं क्या भाई?
क्या हुआ?
आ जाऊं क्या आपने?
अरे मैं कह रहा हूँ मैं आता हूँ आयुष भाई, है ना, थोड़ा रुकना 15 मिनट वैसे ना.
आओ ठीक.
So what I was basically saying is, I just told these names to you. These are the people who I met in Delhi, and these are the people who were engineers and who came from, of course, English medium schools, good schools, got quality education, and they did not prepare anything for this SSC examination. Akhilesh is still working under GST department. He's posted in Lucknow, and he is drawing the salary of over 70-80K. On the other hand, I've got my friends from my hometown who went to the Hindi medium schools because they came from lower class, of course, and of course there were regional disabilities, so to say, because they came from backward regions. Of course, not Kejriwal like policies are available here. So he's doing good in Delhi, in Delhi, like be it the schools or hospitals, he's doing good. So here what happens, what in my hometown, what I observed is the people from the lower class or the lower middle class would generally go for the government schools. Even if they do not go for the government schools are invariably in Hindi. The medium of the instruction there would be Hindi. The curriculum there would be in Hindi, be it the girls' school, be it the high school, be it the RSS run Shishu Mandir. When it comes to the private schools, or this school I think is run by trust. Be it the Gangabai, be it some other schools. These schools they impart education only in Hindi, only in Hindi. So what I'm saying is basically, doesn't this agenda of preserving the indigenities, the Swadeshiness, nativeness in the language, through the language, doesn't it come at the cost of the career progression of the lower class and lower middle class people? Is a big question that we have to ask ourselves. Take a second. Because I have got the friends here in my hometown, I interacted with them. They told me like how difficult it was for them to prepare English, to prepare mathematics, because they couldn't afford the coaching so as to prepare for the IITs, NITs, like LN. They couldn't go to LN, right? They didn't have the resources, and this was the reason like they didn't think of doing the engineering, which again, if even if you don't go to IIT, is worth at least 1 lakh to 1.5 lakh per year. It is a 4-year long course, so many of the people cannot pursue it just because of the huge costs involved in these professional engineering or medical courses or MBA courses. And if you do not go to them, then what happens is that you're not good in mathematics, aptitude, and that all. And if you didn't go to the English medium school, then you're not good in English. And what happens basically is that these two are the main factors, main components of your of the competence that is being judged, tested, or that is being checked at the in the examination at various levels. For example, I told you about SSC banking and that all. This is how the inequalities perpetuate. This is how the inequalities are reproduced. At the core is the issue. Is only the lower class of the society Is it only their duty? Is it their duty to preserve the indigeneity? Is it not the duty of the upper class elite section, of the privileged section of the society, to do something so as to preserve the indigeneity in language, so as to preserve the language? I'm not against language. I'm not a fan of Nehru, not an Anglicist and not an Anglophile. I respect, I can talk with the same fluency or even more fluency and proficiency in Hindi. I take pride in it. I like reading, writing in Hindi, and for that matter, even Sanskrit. I read Bhagavad Gita daily. So do not judge me. What I'm saying is that this is what is happening on the ground. This is what it is like. The situation is like. Is it really decolonizing or perpetuating? So the crux remains that the overall system, the superstructure, the job market, the governance structure is dominated by English. The exam conducting bodies, the corporates who are providing the jobs, the job givers, they are looking for the people who are well read, well versed in English, who can read, speak, write well in English, who actually acquired their knowledge or acquired the education in English at the top. You know? And at the bottom, what's happening is that the students, when they are groomed or nurtured or prepared, they are prepared in Hindi or in local medium. So there is this dichotomy. There is this demand supply mismatch. The demand is of the English, but the supply that is being happening, that the supply that we are doing is in Hindi or is in the regional language, that is causing a lot of problems for this section of the society. Of course, like a couple of people would be able to make it to there, and they would be projected by the people who are the proponents or advocates of decoloniality. That look, how did they do? They did it, but look at the percentage. Look at the share. Out of the 60 percentage of people, if 5 to 6 percentage are somehow making it to here with the medium of instruction being Hindi, then it is not something to feel proud of. It's not something to feel proud of. This is the problem which I would request the proponents of the decoloniality to explain. Explain. See, culturally, civilizationally, and the concept of decoloniality is fascinating, and it's practically also very very good. But there are some loopholes, some flaws, some demerits, some shortcomings which are there, which we'll have to consider, which we cannot ignore, and this is one of them. And I want people to please address this issue, because this is a very important observation. The observation is like an open secret. It is quite open that in the lower cities, towns, and the villages, education is getting imparted in Hindi. This is a fact. And at the same time, we all know that it is open that English is required to gain the mobility, to gain the success, progress in the society, economically, socially. It would increase your status and your class if you speak in English. You will be highly likely to get a job, be it in the corporate world or in the private world or in the public world. Sorry, but 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 what's happening is that it is helping in perpetuating the inequalities, reproducing the inequalities. Because the person who is coming from the underprivileged background will not be able to access the education in English. Thus, it hampers his career progression. Now, what could be the typical solution? The typical solution that came in my mind is, if the overarching structure, if the superstructure, if the world where the jobs are available, where we can find the success, if it is all has intrinsic relationship with English, if it all has affinity towards English, affinity towards the pious, if this colonial hangover is very much present there in the superstructure, we can see the coloniality working there, then why the government is not changing this? Why the government is not changing the way supplies are made? Supply is basically the students, the youth that is being nurtured in the schools. at the lower level, the primary, secondary, or tertiary level, amongst the masses, amongst the rural class. Now, why English is not brought here, not being brought here as the medium of instruction, so that they can get the equal opportunities, so as to level the playing field, so as to provide a level playing field, so as to you know make equality there, bring equality there. Why? The government wouldn't do it because government would fear that, because of the cultural and civilizational reasons, because Hindi, or for that matter any regional language, local language, is something that we feel proud of, we take pride on, that it is our mother language, it is indigenous thing, it is Indic thing. And conservatives, traditional people who have a traditional mindset, who value traditions, even I am one of them, and there are no two ways about it. They would not want their traditional treasure heritage go extinct, become extinct, because of a foreign alien language, that is English. So of course, like, this would be a problem. This is a huge situation. This is a huge dilemma present before us, before we people, like, who take pride on their culture and civilization and their attributes. Language is of course an important attribute, component of the culture and civilization, and it is a huge dilemma for us. What can be the solution? Can be the solution? Now, a solution can be, we can change the structure which is operating at the superstructural level. I mean, I told you, here in the schools, this is the infrastructure. Suppose that, let us hypothetically suppose that this is the infrastructure. Like, at this level, children, students are getting nurtured, are giving the education, and this is the superstructure wherein uh, the adults, the people who are above 18 or 20 are looking for the jobs, right? So if you cannot change this because of the cultural or civilizational reasons, if you cannot change this because of the cultural reasons, that we'll lose our nativity, indigeneity, and that all. Hindi हमारी मातृभाषा है, and that is true also. Then why do you not change this? Why didn't you changing this? Why haven't you brought reforms in this segment, in this part? Why is it that still it's been a quite some time when when this new establishment government is there in the power, which supposedly, avowedly, apparently talks of the conservation and preservation of our culture and its heritage? Why hasn't taken any big steps? Why aren't there reforms? Because even now you need good hold on English so as to pass any exam, with the government exam, and you need a good hold on English, good fluency and proficiency in English, so as to compete in the job market, so as to prove your worth, to become capable. And this gap is only increasing. The dichotomy is only getting worse. The divide is only becoming more and more severe. This is a question of policy reform. This is a question of policy reform, which I hope the people who are sitting at the helm of the administration would give it a thought, a serious thought.